Welcome back, everybody, to the next Indie Spotlight recap for the month of November 2019. If you missed part 1, there'll be a link to it in the description down below. But these are recaps of the games that we play for our Indie Spotlight streams, and we're always looking for new games to look at. And if you are a developer working on a future one, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But all the games shown have been played on press keys provided by developers. But our first game is Chipmunk, which is essentially if Golden Axe and I guess the Secret of Nim were combined. Not much in terms of the story. All I seem to know is that one of our chosen either squirrel or chipmunk friends is battling an evil empire. And that means just going around town beating up all manner of bad guys. All the attacks and elements in this game are straight out of Golden Axe. From attacking enemies to stun them into a throw, to even getting a super, which in this game is you essentially something like a dung beetle to do massive amounts of damage. The game is available for local co-op as well, and other than that, this is one of those titles that it basically is Golden Axe. Just replace again the fantasy setting with whatever is going on here. I think we even heard some sound effects that were ripped from the original game over some other older classic Genesis titles. But for this one, from a basic gameplay standpoint, it does feel on point. Your character moves and behaves as you expect it to. And if you're expecting, I think, more complexity, like something like Fight and Rage or River City Girls, it is definitely not here. This seems like, again, one of those rainy day kind of games that if you and a friend have like an hour to kill, to check this one out. All the basic elements, both good and bad, from Golden Axe are here. Enemies can have that lovely way of just canceling out your attacks or just interrupting you. And of course, it's very easy to get stun locked as well. But other than that, again, it is what it is. Nothing bad, nothing amazing either. So, with that said, let's move away from spring and get to our next game. And we're going to a shoot 'em up in the form of Gun Crazy, which is kind of a mishmash of Gunstar Heroes with more of a basic shooter like something along the lines of Contra. And this is an unusual game. It's priced very cheaply, but it does feel like it's a little bit overpriced in that regard. The basic gameplay is on point. Moving, jumping, shooting, dodging, all feel responsive and great in my hands. But the entire game is about, I think, 4 or 5 levels long that just repeats the same basic content. Even a few of the boss fights are recycled here and there. The one thing the game does that is kind of unique is that when you do your dodge, if you dodge through an enemy bullet, not only do you delete it, but you reclaim any ammo for your secondary weapon. And that is pretty much the only unique element Gun Crazy has. And despite like the amount of quality in the backgrounds and even just some of the animations, the game feels kind of more like a prototype than it does a finished game. And I don't know what the developer's intent was for this one. I mean, I could literally show you in the next 10 minutes the entire game. That's about it. And like, even if I go forward in our play, nothing really is standing out from a gameplay standpoint. It's like they have a very great basic gameplay loop, but didn't know how to really evolve it. And other than that, to be frank, there's not much else to say about Gun Crazy. If you're looking for something very, very quick in terms of a run and gun or basic shooter, give this one a check, but I think everyone probably knows of better and far more involved experiences of the genre. And with that, let's move on. And we come to, I guess, what is inevitable, a game trying to mirror or be inspired by the hit Slay the Spire. And this is Deep in the Forest. This one is currently on early access, and while it may not have the same amount of presentation and kind of just the overall design as Slay the Spire, it does do things a bit differently, and this may prove to be more polarized or controversial depending upon your thoughts on the original Slay the Spire design. The stories that we are trying to reclaim our kingdom, as you can kind of make it on the bottom level, we're, I guess, a cute little raccoon. And it's up to us to fight the various barons of our woodland territory to then take out the king who has disposed us. And yes, that's a very dark story for what appears to be cute little critters fighting with cards. Now, what the game does is it changes up a lot of the basic rules and progression compared to something like Slay the Spire. So the first thing is that you pool energy based on each round. So it's not a case of you just always having a fixed pool. You also get more cards back each turn based on the number of cards you throw out in the previous one. So that if you don't use any of your cards in a single round, you'll have more cards to play with in the next round. Likewise, if you go all in on one round, it means you'll have less to deal with on the next round. It's a very interesting way of changing kind of the pacing and flow. Now, you may have noticed symbols on the various cards. That denotes the type of card it is. And there is a combo system that if you play cards of the similar type or the same matching symbol, it will enhance the next card in the line. And you'll have to choose between one or two specific enhancements, such as being able to give yourself more armor, or heal yourself, do more damage to one enemy versus do damage to everybody, etc., etc. Now, when you finish a battle, you'll unlock a new card, which I believe just adds it to the chain going forward, but you'll choose one as well. Now, a major part of Deep in the Forest, compared to something like Slay the Spire, is how the campaign structure works. As you can see in the upper right, you get various items or trinkets that will enhance your character, and whatever fits into that little grid there, almost like a Tetris box, becomes active, while your larger inventory is the bank. And what the game does is that there's a greater focus on the persistent layer compared to Slay the Spire and other deck-building roguelites or the like, so however you want to call them. In this one, when you die or when you lose, you go back to the start as you would in any other game, but your level remains persistent, and your character's level affects your starting health, as well as upgrading the damage on cards, and may even give you more energy as well. We didn't get that far into that system, but reading on the store page, they also say that if you can beat an area in a playthrough, you are allowed to keep one trinket as permanently unlocked. And there are some very powerful combinations that are available, such as trinkets that give you bonus energy, trinkets that enhance cards or give you something back for using a specific card, and there is definitely some crazy synergies that are possible. With that said, though, there are a few caveats with this one. The first one is that, again, from a presentation standpoint, it definitely does not pop in the same way as Slay the Spire. Very basic animations, as you can see, not a lot in terms of music or sound effects, and I think it's going to have to up the presentation value in order to get people invested. Another problem is how the battles go. Like I said a minute ago, there is a focus on the persistent layer, and that causes a major issue in terms of balance. When you're starting out and playing this game, there is no way that you're going to be able to win. The enemies will just do more damage than you can properly heal. You don't have the cards or trinkets available. And similar to other roguelites, you just don't have the means of winning from the get-go. And that can be very frustrating. Many of the enemies that we play during our trial of the game are designed around growing more and more powerful with each passing turn, usually improving their or upping their damage capacity by 1 point per turn. What that means is that tempo play is a very big point about Deep in the Forest. And if you're not able to quickly kill an enemy, you're going to find yourself just being hopelessly outmatched by their damage, and you won't have the means to heal or defend yourself otherwise. Now, with that said though, please keep in mind that we were playing this very early into its early access period, and what you see may not represent the current version of the game. There is definitely potential here with Deep in the Forest, and if they can balance things out a little bit better and make that persistent layer kind of be more impactful, or let the player realize there's more to it than just stat bonuses, this could be a very solid alternative to Slay the Spire. But keep in mind though that will have to come hopefully after a lot of updates and growth to the base design. But with that said, we're going to do our Patreon supporter and sponsor shout out now, and when we return we'll move on to the next game in our spotlight. And now for a quick thank you to our current Game Wisdom Patreon supporters and sponsors. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. We now come to, I think, what a lot of people consider to be the standout winner of our spotlight for this month, and that is Rise of the Slime. This is another game that has some very light deck building aspects to it, but what makes it different is just how much the field or the interaction has an impact on the game. And for those of you watching this right now, it is definitely not muted. This game just has very quiet sound effects at the moment. But this is another campaign kind of structured game. As you see the map along the bottom of the screen, our mission is to explore the various lands and not get killed. The aesthetics really do stand out with Rise of the Slime. It essentially reminds me of Paper Mario, with kind of these like cutouts or figures fighting instead of actual characters. The game, as you can see as I'm dodging rocks left and right here, is also a lot more active compared to other roguelike or roguelite style games. Now, as we're about to get into combat here, you can also see me interacting with the map right there. But combat plays out turn-based in I go, you go kind of style. Cards along the bottom come from our deck. Now, if you look on the far right-hand side, you notice a card with a boot on it. That is a special card that allows me to move my character 3 spaces on the field. Now, this is a very important point about Rise of the Slime, as the environment plays a major factor. So right now, you can see that there's an acid pool on the ground. Anyone who steps on that will get poisoned, and the longer they stay in acid, the more damage it does. Right now, I'm going to move out of the way so that bomb doesn't blow up and kill me. There's also fire effects as well that can also burn a ground, and you can use this to start developing some major damage over time on an enemy. You can have an enemy who is both poisoned and burning at the same time. Another factor is that positioning matters when it comes to basic attacks. If you are behind an enemy and perform any kind of sword or knife based card, you will do a backstab bonus that will do enhanced damage. And the same goes for enemies as well. So positioning matters, and you do not want to be kind of caught sandwiched between 2 enemies. The enemy types from what we play during our trial here kind of run a gambit of abilities. Some will kind of rush you for melee, others will stand back and use spells. There are boss and mini-boss class enemies along those lines. Now you can also upgrade your cards similar to Slay the Spire, get health recoveries, improve your base stats, and the game does feature a form of persistence. you get a pet as you begin to play the game, who remains a constant ally throughout your playthrough. The first one you get basically lets you play any card you attach to him literally for free. So if you get like a super rare card that gives you free armor or healing, you can have that guy cast it every time. For every room that you clear, and I think every enemy that you defeat, you also collect their essence, which is used to unlock new decks. Now, keep in mind that what we're playing is the early access build of the game, so I don't know how much is going to be changed throughout its period. But for right now, there are 2 additional deck types, an acid-based deck and a fire-based one that you can play with. And whatever the deck that you choose determines what cards you're going to get when you beat an encounter. Now, when you beat the world, you unlock the additional areas, which will have you fighting more either acid or fire-based enemies respectively, at least again for right now. But like I said, Rise of the Slime reminds me a lot about Slay the Spire, in that from the get-go, there is a lot to this game, and you can definitely tell that a lot of time and care has been put into it, even with the game being on early access. The version that we're playing right now, the one that you're seeing, is kind of from a pre-early access build, because the developer's gave me a press key just before it went on. So there is definitely a lot here, and that is a very good sign. If there are any nitpicks at this moment for the game, is that it does seem to get a little bit kind of overtuned in terms of deck strategies. We actually played this during the second night of our stream because people wanted to see more of it. And during that play, I basically got like the acid builds, or I think it was either the acid or the fire builds dream combination of skills. Basically, I was hitting enemies with acid, I could multiply the acid, and I could just basically heal if I was acided as well. And I mean, I was doing a lot of damage. At one point, we had about a stack of 40 to 60 on a single enemy, so they were taking that amount of damage per turn. And while the footage that you've seen so far and what you're watching right now doesn't seem so bad, the game definitely has a few difficulty spikes to it, especially when you get to boss and higher class enemies. Killing an enemy who only has 20 to 30 points of health isn't that big of a deal. When you get to something that has 80 to 100, then it becomes a little bit more challenging. And because all your resources are persistent across the run, you need to be really careful with how you manage things, especially when it comes to the stat bonuses. There are specific points on the map where you can spend gold to upgrade your character's energy, health reserves, or even allow you to have more pets on the field. Right now you see that little green smiley guy up there. That basically fills up my pet slot. Now you could get a card that upgrades it, but you need to be careful with how you spend your money. This is again one of those games where there's way too many things to buy and not enough money to spend it all on. And I am curious to see what they're going to do in terms of greater persistence. There's kind of like a little card that kind of gives your characters details how many times you've played. But other than unlocking the new decks and getting new pets, there doesn't seem to be a lot in terms of a long form play. And it does make me wonder, like, if we just beat all 3 areas in the game, is there going to be another reason to come back to this one? In the same vein as unlocking new artifacts or the Ascension challenges in Slay the Spire. I think with that said, though, there's not much else for me to say right now. I know I've said a lot on this game because I really did enjoy it. And as I said at the beginning, this I think is the game to really keep a strong eye on, or keep a strong eye out for. If you're a fan of deck building style games or you really enjoyed Slay the Spire, this could be the next really great take on this kind of roguelite or roguelike style design. With that said, we're going to wrap up part 2 of our Spotlight stream recap here. We should have enough games for guarantee one more part. We may need another video after that. It really depends when I start looking at our final set of games. As always, I would like to thank developers for providing Spotlight keys or submitting their games. If you'd like for me to take a look at your game in the future, please do not hesitate to get in touch, as we are trying to do these at least once a month. And again, if you want links to all the games, they should be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it. And tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.